Ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for your welcome. It's great to be here. Tracy, thanks very much for the invitation to be here. For those of you who don't know, as Stanley said, I've been lucky enough to play for the Wallabies for about a 12-year period, and now I'm sort of in commentary with Fox Sports. And I think my journey in playing for a World Cup winning team and a high-performing team, I just wanted to share you some memories of playing for the Wallabies, but more importantly what I learned, I suppose, playing for the Wallabies and how being part of those World Cup winning teams has allowed me to then translate that to a business world afterwards. Most of you probably remember a guy called David Campese, who was a wonderful player in our era, and so I was lucky to play in an era where, for the likes of our back line for the Wallabies at that time, we had Nick Farr-Jones at halfback, Michael Liner was fly half, I was inside centre, a guy called Jason Little was outside centre, and then David Campese was self-centred. So we had a pretty well balanced back line in those early years. When the Wallabies play against the All Blacks, and most of you would have seen a game against the All Blacks where they do the haka, you get 2 or maybe 3 opportunities to score a try. So in that 80 minutes of rugby, you get a couple opportunities to take that gap, and you get about a second, maybe in a second and a half, when that gap opens, that you've got to put your foot down and take the gap. So being prepared off the field and being prepared mentally, physically, the weights training that we do, the skills training that we do, you get a couple of opportunities in that game to actually take that gap. And for us as players, we had to be adaptable to changing conditions or changing environments depending on the side we're playing. But the greatest piece of advice I can give to younger players now is about being prepared to take the gap. I'm very good friends with an Australian who is head of high performance at Red Bull. So in Red Bull, you would see how many players and people around the world they sponsor. And what Red Bull High Performance try to do is get the extra 1% out of that athlete. So they provide all the opportunity, they provide all the software, they provide all this technology for their athletes, whether they're a V8 racing car driver, whether they're a rap dancer, whether they're a musician, whether they're a hurdler, whether they're a surfer. How can they provide opportunity to get that extra 1%, whether it's from a Mick Fanning, whether it's from Jamie Whincup, whether it's from athletes all around the world. And have a look at this vision and understand the effort that they go to just to try and get that little extra bit.
I think people are inspired by high performance. People expect and love seeing every generational shift and change.
There's so many talented athletes out there that never make it to the pro level just because they don't have the mindset.
How do you control your body's energy before big moments? How do you train to be more calm?
Probably the best opportunity that I had to meet probably the world's greatest leader was meeting Nelson Mandela. So I had the opportunity in 1994 in Cape Town to fly in a helicopter with 8 other Wallaby players to Robben Island, where Robben Island was where he was housed in the jail cell for nearly 20 years, to understand the history that happened on Robben Island, to understand the inscriptions that he'd written on his jail cell wall, and then have the opportunity to read the book, Nelson Mandela's book, but then probably more importantly, to see what happened for those of you who understood and have seen the 1995 Rugby World Cup and how Nelson Mandela and also the captain of the Springbok team they united the whole country. So Francois Pienaar, the captain, Nelson Mandela, the president, they got together 3 years before that Rugby World Cup and said, this is how we're going to unite the country. We're going to use rugby and sport and also win this Rugby World Cup to unite the whole nation. The aura and the power that Nelson Mandela had, there was no way they were going to lose against the All Blacks. I often laughed to Francois. I said that it's a shame that John Howard didn't have that same influence on our Wallaby. Thanks very much for having me, and go the Wallabies.